July 18, 2025, 4:16 a.m. local time, the Philippine Sea. In the pre-dawn stillness, the USS Gerald R. Ford was sailing in silence, 217 nautical miles east of Taiwan, unaware that the Pacific was about to erupt beneath it. From the dark eastern horizon, 12 YJ-21E hypersonic cruise missiles tore into the sky. Flying over Mach 5, they were followed by 21 electronic warfare drones, low-flying, wave-hugging, equipped with signal jammers and false radar returns. The attack came not from the mainland, but from Liu-Yang-O-1, China's newest and most ambitious aircraft carrier. It was not a drill, not a simulation. It was the first carrier-on-carrier strike of the 21st century. Inside the Ford's Combat Information Center, red lights bathed the walls. Sirens screamed. Radar screens flooded with hostile signatures. A missile exploded just 90 yards from the port bow, drenching the deck in seawater. Seconds later, a low-flying drone self-destructed mid-approach. There were no casualties, no hull breach, but the message was unmistakable. America had just been attacked, not by pirates, not by militias, but by the People's Liberation Army Navy. The strike lasted 92 seconds, but those 92 seconds changed everything. The USS Ford didn't flinch, it moved. Within seconds, the carrier's three-layered defense kicked in. First, Aegis, from the USS Thomas Hudner. 5 SM-6 interceptors were fired in rapid succession. They climbed skyward and intercepted 3 of the hypersonic missiles at over 40,000 feet. The explosions lit the dark sky like brief flashes of daylight. The swarm had been fractured, but not broken. Second, ESSM. Ford's own vertical launch cells responded. 4 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles arced outward, tracking fast-moving drones flying just above the waves. These UAVs weren't just scouts, they were weapons. Loaded with jammers and flares meant to confuse the Ford's radar. It didn't work. 8 drones were taken down in rapid succession. Their wreckage splashed into the sea, still burning. But one made it closer, much closer. Then came the third ring, CIWS, the close-in weapon system, activated automatically. From both sides of the flight deck, twin 6-barreled Gatling guns spun to life. Each fired 4,500 rounds per minute, unleashing a wall of tungsten into the air. The drone, low, fast, and nearly undetectable, was destroyed just 210 yards from the hull. The explosion shook bolts loose across the deck. Below, damage control crews stood ready. No panic, no shouting, only movement. Everyone had drilled for this. No one froze. 33 threats had entered the strike group's perimeter. None made contact. No casualties, no fires, no aircraft destroyed. And yet, in that moment, it wasn't the lack of damage that mattered most. It was the fact that China had fired first. And missed. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was calculation. USS Gerald R. Ford was still alive. And someone had just told the United States it was vulnerable. The answer would come. Not with emotion, not with hesitation, with precision. By 4:23 a.m., just 7 minutes after the last missile was intercepted, the battle group wasn't reacting anymore. It was scanning, coordinating, preparing to strike back. Above the carrier, a Northrop Grumman E-2D Hawkeye rose into a wide orbit at 32,000 feet. Its rotating radar dome swept the sea below in long, deliberate arcs. Within 90 seconds, the fog began to lift. The enemy had tried to blind the fleet, but the jamming field was weakening. Signal clarity returned. Hostile echoes faded. And something appeared where there had been only static. The origin point of the attack. It wasn't a missile silo onshore. It wasn't a hidden submarine. It was a warship. The Liu-Yang-O-1. China had done what no nation had dared in over 4 decades. launch a strike directly from a carrier group. Now it was holding position, 200 nautical miles southeast of Taiwan, protected by two Type 055 destroyers and a screen of mobile radar arrays. Two EA-18G Growlers, already airborne in northern patrol arcs, rerouted south. Flying just above the wave tops, they transmitted concentrated jamming pulses into the same frequency bands the enemy drones had used. 6 Chinese UAVs still loitering in the area lost signal. They spiraled down, uncontrolled, vanishing beneath the waves. Inside the Ford's Combat Information Center, Commander Rachel Dean stood watching a digital operations board. The radar cross-section of Liuyang-01 returned. A ghost, now solid again. "That wasn't random interference," she said quietly. "They wanted us blind. They wanted us hit, but they failed." Moments later, a stealth MQ-25 Stingray drone, cloaked in sea clutter just 43 miles from Liuyang-01, transmitted its final feed. It had confirmed the carrier's location, heat signature, deck orientation, and, most crucially, the position of its internal magazine. Then it went dark, and that's all U.S. Pacific Command needed. The Liuyang-01 was no longer the hunter. It was the target. At exactly 1440 local time, the sea east of Taiwan was quiet. No radio signals, no maneuvering vessels, no missile warnings. But high above the clouds, something was already in motion. 4 B-1B Lancer bombers, flying from a classified forward base in Guam, entered the strike zone from an unexpected vector. They had flown for hours under strict radio silence, refueled mid-air by KC-46 Pegasus tankers, and avoided every known Chinese radar corridor. Each Lancer carried 2 AGM-183A ARRW hypersonic glide missiles. These were not conventional cruise weapons. They moved at Mach 7. They maneuvered mid-flight, and they hit with a kinetic impact equivalent to 2,000 pounds of TNT. But these warheads weren't targeting radars or landing zones. They were locked on one ship, the Liuyang-01. Just minutes earlier, the MQ-25 Stingray had sent the final targeting package: flight deck heat signature, structural overlays, and exact heading. It even pinpointed the location of the ship's ammunition magazine buried below deck. At 14 Thuherfoin, Tarbent Fothins, 41 Thuit, Fonan Freyer Torfuin. 32, the order was given. 2 B-1Bs released their payloads. Mid-air, the ARRWs ignited. They dropped into a steep glide path, then accelerated into hypersonic flight. Traveling over 5,300 miles per hour, they crossed the last 100 nautical miles in under 70 seconds. The Chinese air defense network picked them up, but it was too late. At 14:42:17, the first missile slammed through the forward mid-deck of the Liuyang-01. It detonated just beneath the flight elevator launch tracks, instantly collapsing the main deck structure. 5 seconds later, the second ARW struck 6 meters from the edge of the central munitions bay. What followed wasn't a single blast. It was a chain reaction. Fire surged through every open hatch. Internal bulkheads burst. Shock waves rippled through the hangar bays. Aviation fuel tanks lit up like torches. Secondary explosions erupted below the waterline. A U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon, orbiting 60 miles east, recorded it all. A tower of flame rose 600 feet into the sky. Then came the second blast, then a third. One flight deck elevator was launched off the hull and spun through the air like shrapnel, disappearing into the sea. By 14:56, the Liuyang-01 was listing. By 15:01, its stern had slipped beneath the waves. By 15:07, it was gone. No mayday, no survivors recovered, no final message. A 75,000-ton symbol of Chinese naval power, erased in under 18 minutes. The ocean boiled for a moment. And then, it was still. On board the USS Gerald R. Ford, there were no cheers, no shouts of victory, No breaking of protocol, only silence. The crew stood at their stations, eyes fixed on the combat displays. No one moved. No one needed to. Inside the CIC, the data stream was final. Liu Yang 01, neutralized. No counterstrike detected. No signals from the wreck site. Rear Admiral Marcus Vance gave one simple command. Broadcast nothing. Let them feel the silence. Across the Indo-Pacific, command centers fell still. In Tokyo, radar technicians watched the satellite feeds update. In Canberra, naval analysts took notes in silence. In Pearl Harbor, Pacific Command officers stared at real-time imaging of black smoke rising where a carrier had once floated. And in Beijing, the silence was engineered. State media aired archival footage. Official channels went dark. Over 36,000 social media posts were deleted in 6 hours. The phrase Liu Yang 01 became unsearchable in state-monitored networks, but no amount of censorship could erase what had just happened. China had launched a carrier strike group, and within 20 minutes, its flagship rested beneath 19,000 feet of salt water. There was no U.S. press conference, no dramatic statement from the Pentagon, because nothing more needed to be said. For American allies, reassurance didn't come in speeches. It came in precision. For adversaries, the lesson was unmistakable. Deterrence is not posture. It is execution. The Ford hadn't survived by luck. It had survived because it was built for this. It had trained for this. It was part of a network designed to win, not in theory, but in moments. Fast, silent, and final. A new balance had been written in fire, and the U.S. Navy hadn't just restored it, it had defined it. China had spent decades building its Navy, not just for war, but as a message. Steel, ceremony, superstructure. But symbols don't survive contact. The Liu Yang 01 was supposed to be proof. Proof that China could project power into contested waters. Proof that America could be pushed back. Instead, it became proof of something else. That when tested, the United States doesn't hesitate. That American strength doesn't need to announce itself. It arrives. It strikes. It finishes. In Tehran, in Pyongyang, in the bunkers beneath Moscow, commanders took note. Because this was not just a single operation. It was a doctrine, written in silence, enforced by readiness, and executed without compromise. By the end of that week, U.S. carriers had repositioned across the Indo-Pacific. Not to provoke, but to make one truth undeniable. You don't fire on an American carrier and walk away. We are not just defenders of the sea. We are the authors of its rules. And when the waves go still again, the last flag flying will be ours. If you stand with the fleet, subscribe. If you believe in deterrence through strength, share this story, because next time, silence will come even faster.